Hello everyone and welcome to this edition of Inside the Naval Postgraduate School. From the beautiful Rose Garden here on the campus of NPS in Monterey, California, I'm your host Alan Richmond here on the Pentagon Channel. Thanks for joining us. Well, in this episode, we'll visit with Admiral Jerry Ellis and talk about technology and the Wave Glider. We'll also look at a recent exercise held in Big Sur, California with NPS researchers on wireless communication systems. But first, recently we had the opportunity and the pleasure to sit down with the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, Admiral Cecil D. Haney, who also happens to be an NPS alum. Admiral Cecil D. Haney, a native of Washington, D.C., is a 1978 graduate of the United States Naval Academy, where he received a Bachelor of Science degree in ocean engineering. He holds master's degrees in engineering acoustics and systems technology from the Naval Postgraduate School and a master's degree in national security strategy from the National Defense University. Haney completed operational assignments in the USS John C. Calhoun in various division officer assignments and in USS Frank Cable, where he completed surface warfare qualifications while serving as a radiological controls officer. He served as an engineer on the USS Hyman G. Rickover, executive officer of the USS Asheville, and assistant squadron deputy at Submarine Squadron 8 before taking command of the USS Honolulu. Haney commanded Submarine Squadron 1 and Submarine Squadron 2. Haney's shore duty tours include administrative assistant for enlisted affairs at Naval Reactors and Congressional Appropriations Liaison Officer for the Office of Secretary of Defense. Deputy Chief of Staff of Plans, Policies, and Requirements, U.S. Pacific Fleet, and Director, Submarine Warfare Division, Director, Naval Warfare Integration Group, and Deputy Commander, U.S. Strategic Command, Nebraska. Well, Admiral, thank you very much for joining us here on the Pentagon Channel. Now, you've been the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet since January 20th. I'm wondering if you can give us an overview of your priorities.
Well, thanks, Alan, for that question. As I look at just the vastness, the complexity, and diversity of the Pacific area responsibility, my priorities, first and foremost, is to ensure that I am able to provide warfighting readiness to my combatant commander, the Pacific Command, Admiral Locklear, and to our country, given our interests within the area. And that warfighting capability has to be able to respond to the full spectrum from humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, to be able to deal with any contingency. So that involves being able to have ready forces that can provide that capability into the 7th Fleet area responsibility, but also globally wherever our country needs it in the world. So frequently some of our units actually deploy into the Central Command area responsibility and operate there. My second priority is to advance regional relationships. As you look at the 36 countries within the Pacific area responsibility, there's a lot of diversity and complexity and what have you. So we do a variety of exercises throughout the region so that we're able to operate and respond together to any contingencies. When you look at the number of disasters that require humanitarian assistance that occurred, typhoons, earthquakes, tsunamis, what have you, they're very important that we're able to work together as a team. Just the ability to communicate and respond together matters. The third priority is providing purposeful forward presence. It's combined with that last one I talked about, but when something happens out there, just due to the distances involved in the Pacific, you have to be there so that you can rapidly respond and bring that capability. When you look at the various disasters we have had here just within the last couple of years, that has really helped our nations work together to be able to quickly bring that capability to bear. And my last bin for a priority has to do with, in order to do all that, we have to value the individual sailors that are out there doing the work. My Pacific Fleet team, both sailors as well as civilians, are important ingredients to being able to do what our nation calls upon us through this vast region.
What are some of the challenges and concerns that you face in your role?
Well, when I look at my role, the challenges and concerns really are associated with what happens in the vast Pacific area. As I mentioned, the number of national disasters that occur and to be able to respond to those. About every 2 to 3 months, some significant event generally occurs in that area of responsibility that we're called upon to respond. So having the capability, trained forces to deal with those type of contingencies are critical and important to me, but are also complex.
What are some of the near-term activities and highlights for the Pacific Fleet, and how do they reflect on your mission?
Well, for example, we just finished wrapping up Balikatan, working with United States Marine Corps, as well as a variety of other nations in working humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, and amphibious operations in the region of the Philippines. We have coming up, though, in the very near future here, Pacific Partnership 12. This is where we'll take, in this case, the hospital ship Mercy, and she will deploy through the Pacific Southeast Asian region to provide medical, dental, engineering assistance. But it's not just the United States of America. This is a partnership where we have other partner nations participating, including non-governmental organizations that are working together to provide that capability to a variety of countries.
From your perspective, what's the value of some of the regional partnerships within the Pacific Rim?
The value of the Pacific partnerships is that we can work together on a common interests and common causes. For example, here at the end of June and then through July, we will also have what we call the Rim of the Pacific exercise that will be operated off of Hawaii in that area. But we will bring aboard some 22 different nations will participate in that exercise. It'll be a compilation of some 40 surface ships, 6 submarines from a variety of different nations that are all coming together, as well as aircraft and other capabilities to work for a little over a month together. With that, we end up working interoperability as well as our ability to respond to things collectively together in a rapid fashion, as well as understanding each other and the various concerns of the maritime nations that operate in the Pacific.
Well, of course, we're very proud that you're an alumnus of the Naval Postgraduate School. Welcome home. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your experience here at NPS.
I had the pleasure very early in my career to go to the Naval Postgraduate School. This was in the period of 1985 to 87, so I'm a little dated from being a student here, but I've also had the pleasure to come back from other advanced, shorter courses of education. What I really valued from my experience here is the business of being able to advance my critical thinking and to really, in my particular discipline that I was involved in, systems technology and acoustical engineering, it really got me to advance my education in some critical areas that I was able to use as a submariner for many years beyond graduating from here. Still do.
What advice would you have for someone that might be contemplating coming to the Naval Postgraduate School?
I would tell them to come prepared to really engage in a very diverse and meaningful curriculum and to take advantage of each and every educational opportunity. Those educational opportunities are involved in the classroom, in the laboratories, in the interaction with some of the international students that are there, but in particular taking advantage of just the richness of education that the faculty brings to the table and the ease of access to that faculty to be able to expand our advanced learning and critical thinking.
Why do you think graduate education is so important, and what keeps the Naval Postgraduate School so relevant to today's Navy?
Well, Alan, as I look at the just the complexity of the Pacific area responsibility and the uncertainty of what I may get a call on in the next hour, in the next few days, in the next week. It's very important that we're able to have our military folks, particularly our Navy folks, come through and advance their critical thinking, advanced learning in a variety of different disciplines, and then be able to bring that critical thinking to help in the decision making and the calculus, so that as we go forward in operations, we can offer the president, the combatant commander, etc., with meaningful courses of actions to deal with whatever occurs in this uncertain world of ours.
Well, sir, I know you have a very hectic, busy schedule, so we really appreciate your taking time to sit down and visit with us here at NPS on the Pentagon Channel. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you. On behalf of all the sailors that I have the pleasure of leading that are out and about in the Western Pacific, or in some cases about the globe, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to sound off that they are the ones that are out there doing the nation's bidding, ensuring that our maritime capability is applied for our strategic stability throughout the world.
Well, coming up after the break, we'll have an opportunity to visit Big Sur, California, and some of the NPS research team and look at wireless communication systems. Stay with us. Well, recently we had the opportunity to travel to Big Sur, California on the Central Coast coastline and talk to Brian Steckler, one of the researchers at the Naval Postgraduate School, as well as others on wireless communications technology.
It's a Department of Homeland Security project called the Independently Powered Command, Control, and Communications System, IPC3, using wireless technologies to bring communications to an austere environment in disaster relief mode. There's a group from the Naval Postgraduate School here, CAL FIRE is here, North County Fire District, Big Sur Fire, FEMA, the California National Guard, several NPS students and faculty, and the NPS faculty is actually running the exercise here. And the idea of the exercise is to show how new technologies can enable communications for all the early responder community in a disaster zone or in an emergency. What we're doing is we're practicing what we would do in real life if there was a real world emergency, whether it's an earthquake or a tsunami or a storm or whatever. These agencies normally don't work together. Like, I've never worked with California National Guard before. I've worked with FEMA and with some of the fire departments, but I haven't worked with North County Fire. Well, they're here today. They're seeing all the different capabilities and all the different agencies and how they operate, what equipment they bring, how that equipment can interoperate with other people's equipment. So that's a big challenge for us, is to know when we all show up together at a disaster zone, who has what kinds of communications technologies and how we can integrate those together, whether it's voice communications, data communications, video communications, all those kinds of communications we need to know what each other has, and then that's half the challenge. The other half is to make those things work together.
We also had an opportunity to talk to the U.S. Air Force and to talk about their wave relay system.
What we're demoing here is we work in tandem with the Coast Guard and with NPS in a company called AvWatch, which we use as we call it a surrogate predator. It's a Cessna with predator balls on it and some comm relay equipment. We can swap in gear very easily with this, so it gives us kind of an important test bed. We've used it operationally as well in contingency operations, whether it's Hurricane Katrina, the Mississippi flooding. They had a lot of involvement in the Coast Guard Deepwater Horizon spill. Well, what we got going up right now is two systems, a wave relay. Basically what we create is an airborne mesh network through Wi-Fi. So you got your radio here. This is a 2.7 gigahertz, Brian? 2.4 gigahertz, and also a 5 gigahertz system. This here was helped designed by the Coast Guard. This is for boarding parties. So this essentially is a Wi-Fi hotspot within our mesh network. We can get anywhere and up to, we've seen on the water in the open 50 miles on this system. We'll turn him around. Right now he's linked into a helmet cam, so if he was a boarding party, he could actually stream that live video back into our network and then back into a talk or command center. With our bird, the Cessna that's flying right now, he networks into them. With this, he has an IP connectivity, so we can actually pull down not only full motion video from the bird that's flying, it serves as a comm relay, so he can pull down dirty internet, nippernet, he can do his voice chat off that, he can get Google Earth, get all the situational tools. These have GPS units on them, so any node in our network that we push out, we'll know where it is. The other piece of equipment here I'm demoing is what we call a Rover 5. It's a remote operated video enhanced receiver. On our plane flying, we've got basically it's a Predator ball. It has an infrared camera and a day camera sensor, and we use this to pull down full motion video line of sight. So you got your antennas here in this. Primarily overseas, our joint terminal attack controllers use this to call in airstrikes. They tap into the targeting pod of a F-16, and you can actually see what the bird's looking at now. So again, the important thing to note is we want to give our first responder, in our case it's usually the tactical edge, our first responders, the ability to tap into those feeds. Now NPS has been great. We have a couple cooperative research agreements with them. Another part of my office back at the Pentagon actually funds to the tune of $148 million. It's a joint Air Force NPS program called Beyond Line of Sight Command and Control. We want our tactical users and our guys on the edge either pulling the trigger, making an arrest, or first responders out there trying to save lives to be able to tap into that important situational awareness tool, and so they can do their chat, they can get their video, they can get their full motion video, they can get some Google Earth geospatial awareness tools on there. And that's the important thing about trying to enable our first responders, or for our case, the tactical edge.
The California National Guard was also a part of this exercise, and we talked with them about their emergency communication systems.
We design our equipment to provide all services necessary, and we can tailor those services around the needs of the mission. Our truck, the IC4U, we have modified to provide data, voice, video, wireless, radio comms, radio interoperability, as well as full motion video through the Rover feed as well. In this exercise, we're providing our standard package. We're providing data here to the NPS people on the ground. We're providing video as well. We're streaming video right now back to our Joint Operations Center in Sacramento. And the systems that we're going to flex in this exercise, we're really going to test our radio strengths in this exercises. We'll be setting up a tactical HF network. So we're going to blend the CAL FIRE's HF NIVIS system, and I'm going to bring it into my network and allow it into the National Guard's SACnet system today. We're also really flexing our Wi-Fi. We're extending our wireless longer than we ever have. Right now we have an antenna deployed several miles away, and troubleshooting that to see how far we can get with it. This has been my first exercise with the Naval Postgraduate School, my first time meeting Brian and Buddy, and it's really great. It's great to see the technology that they bring to the table. We're taking just as many notes on what the Naval Postgraduate School is offering us, as well as they're paying a lot of attention to what we have. So I think it's great because in the event that we do get mobilized together, it's wonderful to foster that relationship so that when I get on the ground, I kind of already know in my mind what we're going to be working with. So I think it's excellent to have these exercises with them.
Well, special thanks to everyone who participated in the Emergency Wireless Communications Research Exercise in Big Sur. Well, coming up next, we'll talk to Admiral Jerry Ellis about the Wave Glider and new technology. Stay with us. Well, the Naval Postgraduate School, of course, is known for its cutting-edge technology and research. And recently, we were pleased to accept a Wave Glider. What's a Wave Glider? Here's Admiral Jerry Ellis. Admiral Ellis, can you tell us exactly what the Wave Glider project is all about?
Well, Wave Glider is an unmanned surface vehicle. It was developed by a company called Liquid Robotics, and it's sort of a very unique design in which, if you look at it, it looks like a surfboard. You know, it's about 7 feet long. They can be longer, but on the top of it has photocells, which gather energy from the sun to power sensors. But below it has an umbilical that hangs down that has veins, and these veins capture the wave energy. And it's the wave energy that actually propels this unmanned surface vehicle through the water. And so it's unlimited in its ability to be propelled all over the world for as long as you want. I mean, you don't have to recharge a battery or anything. And if you have sensors on there to sense, let's say, oceanographic kind of parameters like salinity or pressure or speed through the water or temperature, then you're getting that data being provided back via satellite back to the home base, wherever that may be. So it's a very unique design. And they've had these things in the water for over a year, as I said, it could probably stay out there as long as you want.
Let's talk a little bit about the design. And is this a fairly new research project?
Well, it is. It's a fairly new design. It's primarily for oceanographic kind of sensing, as I mentioned, the kind of parameters it does. However, now the Navy is looking at it for other uses. Those other uses may be for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. If you put the right sort of sensors on it, it can sense some important things in areas that we would like to know more about. Or it could be used as a barrier kind of where you're having it patrol back and forth in an area where you'd like to know if there's any, let's say, submarine action, where if you have the right sort of sensors. Now, we haven't developed all these sensors yet, but it offers a lot of, I think, ability for the Navy to do things that, one, it's certainly less expensive and less risky. And, we've always wanted to be able to operate in some very risky areas without putting a man in that risky area. For instance, a minefield. Perhaps you could have the right sort of sensor to detect mines on one of these things. So it goes into the area, it can detect them, it can provide the data back as to where they might be. That's a lot less expensive, a lot less risky than putting a multi-billion-dollar submarine in there or putting a man in there. So it offers, I think, a tremendous potential for the future for the Navy.
Well, I think also one of the big objectives for 2012 is in the area of unmanned vehicles, correct?
As you know, the Chief of Naval Operations, along with the Secretary of the Navy and the Commandant of the Marine Corps, signed earlier this year a document which stated the objectives for fiscal year 12 and beyond. There were 6 objectives. One of those objectives had to do with unmanned systems. And it's basically said, although I can't quote it in its entirety, it said, dominate in unmanned systems within the Department of the Navy by integrating them on the land, underneath the sea, on the sea, and in the air. Develop a culture that understands those systems. And that's where I think the Naval Postgraduate School can really play an important part of developing that culture and providing that sort of education to our young officers, men and women, as they go back to the fleet, that they have a better understanding of unmanned systems, because there are challenges with it, and that they figure out how to operate these things.
Well, I know that NPS has played some kind of a role in the development of the Wave Glider. Can you sort that out for us and explain?
Well, in developing the Wave Glider was really not the Naval Postgraduate School. We're taking a vehicle that was developed by Liquid Robotics. And the Office of Naval Intelligence was one area of the Navy that picked it up to start to doing some experimentation with it to see what capabilities it might provide the Navy. The Naval Postgraduate School now has recognized that. We have been able to get 2 Wave Gliders now, one from the Office of Naval Intelligence. They called it the Shark. And the other we got basically by using some of the funding here from the Naval Postgraduate School, but also with some contributions from the actual company, Liquid Robotics. And now we have these, I would call them toys almost, but they're platforms that we can use. Now we can really start to do some work with those, with our innovative ideas, with our work on trying to figure out how best to use them, what sort of capabilities do they really give us.
So are there other research projects that will be follow-ons to the research done here at NPS on the Wave Glider?
Absolutely, and I think one of the prime examples is a program that's being conducted by research professor Joe Rice here at the Naval Postgraduate School. Joe's been working on the SeaWeb program for several years, and it's basically a network of sensors he puts out in the ocean. These sensors can sense various things, perhaps even submarines, but also certainly oceanographic parameters. And it can provide that information back to whatever home base. But these sensors talk to each other via an acoustic talk. But it's hard to get acoustically to get the information back. The way Joe sees it now is this wave glider will provide him a communication node. The sensors talk to each other, but eventually talk to the node that talks to the satellite that brings it back down to home base, to wherever your control is. This program has great potential.
Well, I suppose that's one of the reasons that NPS stays so relevant to the military, and particularly to the Navy, is the cutting-edge research. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I don't think you would find it any other place, because the research that we do is normally somewhat related to the military, to the Department of Defense, to the Navy, to our national security needs. You won't find that in too many other places. We don't do research just for research's sake here. It has to do with something, it has to do with the education of that officer and what he's working on. So that research is contributing to helping him to get that degree. But it's also helping the Navy and the Department of Defense.
New technology and the wave glider. Special thanks to Admiral Jerry Ellis. Well, that's it for this edition of Inside the Naval Postgraduate School from the campus in Monterey, California. I'm your host, Alan Richmond, right here on the Pentagon Channel. Take care. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.